3 organisations involved in Clubs in Crisis are Made by Sport, and you can see their logo there. They are a campaign organisation rather, and they're there to generate funds for sport, and have obviously done a great job here. We've got Flutter Entertainment, which I'll talk a little bit about, which is where the money has come from, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. And we have the UK Community Foundations, of which Somerset Community Foundation is part of that, and Quartet is, I think that we have somebody on the call from Quartet, which is the Westport, if you like, the old counties of Avon. But Somerset Community Foundation are administering all the funds across what was Avon, am I allowed to say that, and Somerset, as we go. And so they are the grant distributors, and Sarah and I from the Active Partnerships are really here just to promote the fund to sport, given that we feel that we've probably got quite good links there. So what's the background to the fund, really? So Made in Sport made the case that young people who are physically active, thanks to what we would call our universal service of volunteers and organisations, sports clubs and organisations that do an amazing job, that young people who have fun in those places have much greater resilience and much greater skill set, much happier, all of those things. And that COVID has had quite a significant life-changing effect on many of those young people. And that sports clubs being closed has exacerbated that too. So really, Made in Sport has made the case that sport can be used to help young people develop their life skills, the employment opportunities, tackle some antisocial behaviour and deal with their mental health, all the things that you know already. And we know that COVID has given us some significant challenges, and for some has been an opportunity. I know some sports clubs who've done okay with some of the business grants that have come through, but for some sports clubs has been really, really hard. And I think that we are very, very keen to support those clubs so we maintain as much of our community provision as we can. So if we look at some of the funding, just as an overview. So Flutter Entertainment has donated 4.79 million, so it's a huge sum of money. But what I will say is that they are a company, they're a holding company for sort of high street betting shops. I think Paddy Power is part of that. And some groups may have some ethical issues around taking money from gambling, and you need to take that into account. However, it's probably fair to say that this money doesn't come directly from profits from gambling, that is from some of the rate relief, I think I'm right in saying, that came in through COVID. So geographically, Somerset, North Somerset, Bristol, Bath and North East Somerset and South Gloucestershire, there's an allocation of £90,000 to be given to clubs across that area. And actually, it's a really simple, Sarah and I were just saying before the call, what a fantastic opportunity to sport to really make the most of some of this funding with young people in their areas. So obviously, SASP and Westport are not distributing these funds. Like I said, Somerset Community Foundation are, and we're really just promoting this. So what will it fund? I'm going to go through each of these in a little bit of, well, not detail, but briefly. So what will it fund? It will fund these 5 things. So the developing life skills is really some of those soft skills that will improve life's chances. So when we talk, everybody expects there to be this huge thing that they need to put in their grant aid. This is really short and sharp sort of things. This is stuff that we do in sport with as a general rule. So developing communication and interpersonal skills, decision making and problem solving, creative thinking, self-control, leadership, all of those things are all in here and in the developing life skills. And so when you think about which of the outcomes do you fit, this is something that I think all sport does and should be really easy for you to just put a few sentences in around what you do here. Two other outcomes are around building stronger communities and improving mental health. And I've just taken from the Community Foundation website some of the things that they have put there. You don't need to have all the outcomes, but if you can look at as many as possible, then that will make your application stronger. So building stronger communities, looking at pulling communities together, helping young people make friends, looking at equality issues, all of that will count towards your application. And mental health, we know that physical and mental health, it's a holistic thing and that it's all wrapped up together, but that mental health, that you can articulate that through increased confidence, friendships, and just a general focus on well-being, which can be really helpful. And particularly, we know that some young people are still quite anxious about coming back into larger groups. I know that many young people have had issues at school. And then the final two outcomes, and like I say, you don't need to achieve all of them, just need to achieve at least one of them, is developing employability for those 16 plus. And really we're talking about some of those. We've talked about developing skills for life, but this is about developing skills for employability. And we've tried to differentiate between those two things by looking at the 16 plus, but looking at new skills. And I think that in sport, the thing that came to mind for me was very much around leadership and any of those qualifications that might be there. And obviously using sport for social good around reducing crime and antisocial behaviour, which is something that sport does pretty well too. So whipping through to eligibility. Obviously club, a charity, community interest company, or a not-for-profit organisation, or sports club with a constitution, all of those things work really well. Obviously, if you have some issues around whether you fit into that, do put that in the chat. It's a really simple online application form, and it's found at Somerset Community Foundation. I thought I'd put an email link to that, but I can add that. Perhaps we could add that in the chat. So I'm sure that many of you have already found it, to be honest. Like I say, geographically based in any of those areas, and very importantly, working in sport with children and young people aged 5 to 25 years old. So if your application is very, very general across and dealing very much with adults, then it probably wouldn't hit priority. Do you need to have some sort of constitution or a set of rules? And importantly, you need some sort of committee structure and a bank account with 2 unrelated signatories. So not husband and wife, is what it means by unrelated. And then a safeguarding policy and an equality policy. So a number of people, I can't think of many organisations that work with young people that wouldn't have a safeguarding policy. The equality policy needs to just be a basic statement. And if you need, when we get to the end, if you need something from us from that, I'm quite happy to share a basic statement around equality if you don't have one for you to adopt at committee. And very importantly, this is very much around small is beautiful. So a turnover of no more than £75,000 per year. I haven't listed all the ineligible pieces, but in reality, ineligibility would be individuals or sole traders, those sort of commercial operators who, however non-commercial they might feel, that actually anything they earn goes into their their own pocket. And schools cannot apply. So there's not the competition from schools or statutory agencies like that. It is purely designed for grassroots sports and organisations. So what is available? There's a one-off grant of £2,000 and £2,021. I knew I'd get that wrong, but you can apply for less. And I know it's a bit gimmicky because we are in 2021, but it will be great marketing for the fund. But you can apply for less if you choose. Like I said, 90,000 available in our area. And the joy of this, the thing that why I really wanted to do some work around promoting it is unrestricted funding. It can be used for core costs, programme costs, project costs, capital costs. It can be used on a huge array of things. And I think that that's really important. So if you have a coach that you pay in your club, and you have a turnover of less than £75,000, actually the money can go towards that, as long as they were working with young people and developing some of those outcomes. The conditions of grant, there aren't any as long as you're eligible. And at the end of the grant, just so you know what the reporting mechanism is, they're really interested in whether the grant has levered more money into your club or was used as match funding, and how it might have been used to sustain your club. So those are the two things that I'm aware that they're going to ask. I'd ask Kirsty if there's anything else to actually talk that through at the end. So like I said, priority, small is beautiful, is absolutely aimed at our grassroots sport, and priority goes, the smaller, the greater the priority, because we know that it's very hard for small groups to fundraise. And I will go again that this is a very straightforward application, and we'd really encourage you to go forward with this. If you have been a club that's received money from Sport England during the pandemic, either the Tackling Inequalities Fund or the Return to Play grants or others, then you do need to declare that on your application, and there's a space to do that. But there is no match funding required. They would love it to bring match funding to you, but actually there's no match funding needed at all. So the application process, there's the link to the Somerset Community Foundation. I knew I'd put it in somewhere. The closing date, the fund is open. It opened in April, and it closes on the 19th of May. So it will close at 5 p.m. and if you don't get your application in, then it won't be counted. I think applications, depending if you have all your paperwork together that's needed, I think applications could be done in, an hour or less quite easily. So it isn't a fantastic, when you think about how long it would take you to gain funding by fundraising in your club, to gain £2,000 in your club, then an hour is probably a great ask and a great use of time. While Sarah and I are really happy to support, Catherine James from Sported, who's on the call, who will also support and support stuff right across the regions, has a really good overview as well. And Sported are a great organisation, very focused again on working with organisations and sport, but organisations that use sport to help with social good. The Community Foundation have committed to giving you a decision either way by the 9th of July, and you will need to spend that money by the end of October, and absolutely by the end of December. But the preferred option is that you are able to show spend by the end of October, and report back on that money. So the application form, I'm sure many of you will have had a look at the application form online. So what will you see? Section 1 is just a basic club information. It just has some basic things around, who you are, where you're based, what your website is, what type of governance do you have, and whether you're part of a governing body, how many staff, how many children. Very stuff that your membership secretary will have. Section 2 is looking about eligibility, which we've been through. Basically, are you constituted? Do you have, a bank account with signatories? All of that, and why you need the funding. And within that, there is a case study around how you worked towards some of the outcomes in your club or organisation. And it is very much, you just need to do something short and sharp. It doesn't need war and peace. It just needs a short paragraph to say what you do and how you enhance young people's lives. So it also asks how you might know that you've helped. And that might be as simple as we ask the children, we collect some feedback, we get verbal feedback, we get written, we do a survey. It doesn't, but how do you know that you're helping young people? And then a little bit about how the pandemic has affected your club. And that's not all about financial, but it is also about members' well-being, about your standing in the community and perhaps volunteering. So I know from the work that I do that a lot of our volunteers have not chosen to come back as quickly as many of the members needed them to, because they are either caring for others or have a long-term condition and don't feel particularly safe. And so how has the pandemic affected your club, and what's that meant for your club? And then how the funding will benefit your work related to those 5 outcomes that we talked about. And like I say, you need to hit at least one of them, but obviously if you can manage more, then that's great, because we do expect a lot of interest in this fund. So the supporting documentation that's needed, and you'll be pleased to know I'm coming to the end of the presentation, is just so you need to have ready. So when you're ready to submit, you will need a copy of your governing body document. So I have met clubs before that couldn't find their constitution. They knew they had one, but it was done way before IT, and it's got lost in the mists of time because it was a paper copy. So do check that you have something and that you're ready to submit that. You will need a list of your committee or board members, depending on what your governance is, and which of those are bank signatories. A copy of your most recent annual accounts. So some of you, most clubs won't have audited accounts as such. They'll have management accounts which are signed off by a independent financial person. So just that, and that's fine. And then obviously just to make sure you're a bona fide organisation, they will want a bank statement, a photocopy of a bank statement for the last 3 months. Safeguarding policy and an equal opportunity policy, which I've mentioned before. So really basic documentation needed for you to go forward. And then this is the final slide. So these are the support mechanisms for you if you have any questions or are not entirely sure whether you are eligible, whether you've hit some of the outcomes, what you need to put in what box. I think Catherine would be your first point of call, but it is whatever suits you. So Kirsty can answer questions and is on the call to do so tonight. But Sported would probably be a great port of call too. So, and at that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask Sarah if there are any questions that have come up.
We've just got one, Jane, around. Can we share the PowerPoint presentation slides afterwards?
That's absolutely fine. So we've had a couple of questions that came in before. One was, let me just get those up. So if people have got something while they're thinking about it, while I just get this up, has Catherine or Kirsty or Sarah, is there anything that you guys would like to add?
So just perhaps talking about those sort of social outcomes, that really is really key for this fund. And it says that, you know, for applicants, they need to show that they're in their work is there, that they're intentionally delivering towards one of those outcomes. It's kind of, perhaps to just give some examples might be helpful. Sort of, you know, you could mention perhaps if your young people actually take an active part in running your organisation. Talk about that, because that really shows that kind of, you know, skills development, sort of growing confidence, that kind of thing. Or maybe, you know, young people take up roles as mentors or coaches for younger members. Maybe they volunteer at local events, club events, sort of fundraising things. Or maybe, you know, what you do gives young people an opportunity to kind of meet people from different backgrounds, or maybe different parts of the UK if they're competing in different events. So those kind of things where you can think of real practical ways of showing how you kind of meet one or more of those sort of social outcomes that Jane was talking about would be really, really good for your application, and certainly help us when it comes to looking at them.
So one of the questions was, could we have a pro forma of the equality? Kirsty, are you happy that I post something out to everybody, which is a basic statement that we would use on Club Matters, which is some of the things that we'd use?
Yeah, absolutely, that'd be really helpful.
Okay, perfect. And then perhaps you could add it to the website too.
Yes, yeah, sure.
Okay.
There's one other question around obviously sort of the money and I mean, I don't know if there's something you can or are able to, Kirsty, is how many applications had so far, whether that's anything you can share, or is it just a case of what you'd like is clubs to get them in as soon as possible?
Yeah, certainly as soon as possible would be really helpful for us. I mean, so far we've not had a huge number of applications in, but we usually find that it's kind of the last week before the deadline is when we do get lots of applications, and there's usually a kind of a last minute rush on. So it's usually hard for us to tell until really right up to the deadline. But yeah, just as soon as you're able to get applications in, that would be great.
Okay. I have another question that was emailed to me earlier today, that one of the organisations is saying that you need a copy of last year's accounts, but theirs are 2 weeks from the end. They're 2 weeks from the end of their financial year. Do you want their last year's, or do you want a projected one from this year?
It would really be helpful to have both. As much information as possible is always good. I mean, we do appreciate this is, you know, it's not long since the end of the financial year, and certainly, you know, the actual finalised accounts you've got is great. Yeah, if you could give us more up-to-date information, that would be really helpful for us.
So the other question was that actually one of the organisations has had some building work done and has a large sum of money put into their account, which actually is a kind of one-off. And if you looked at previous years, you'd see their accounts were under 75, but for last year they were over 75. And they just would like to know what you'd like to do with that.
Yeah, there's always kind of situations like that, aren't there, that are kind of the anomaly. And so I say, if that is the case, and it isn't, as in that case, you know, there's been specific fundraising for a particular purpose, and that you can explain what that purpose is, that money is ring fenced for that purpose, so it's restricted, and perhaps send us the previous year's accounts to just evidence that what your kind of more usual level of turnover is. We're definitely happy to look at that.
So I just have a question, having been through Community Foundation. often you only get a number of chances to attach documents. So can people email, if say they want to attach 2 lots of accounts, sometimes that's not always possible. Can they email those to you separately?
Yes, yeah, please do. Yeah, email, yeah, anything you need over to us. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Sorry, Kirsty, I've got a question. It's Sarah. So I'm not sure if I'm frozen. If hopefully everyone can hear me still. I've just had a question that come through to me separately. There's a number of clubs, community clubs, that are based at a local.
Oh, I've lost you there.
You've lost you, Catherine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sorry, apologies. A number of community clubs are based at a local college. They have their own governing guidance, so they are separate clubs, but the college hold the bank accounts for all the clubs. Well, are they able to apply if they've got their own governance, but obviously just the money's held centrally?
My feeling is yes, they could apply, but as long as it is kind of a completely separate organisation, and they're not. Yes, I think that would be fine. I mean, as long as they're not applying as the college.
No, I think they
as an organisation that's representing the college, sort of like a PTA kind of thing. I think it would be fine.
I think from the question being posed, they are community clubs with their own governance. It's just the bank account. So I suppose as long as they can show that they are separate apart from that sort of monetary perspective, then absolutely, then that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes we have sort of perhaps with new organisations that form where they have had delays in getting a bank account coming through. We have been happy to kind of, if a grant's awarded, we can pay it to another charity or organisation that can hold it on their behalf. So it's something that we have done that previously. So we do understand that sometimes there are circumstances where that is the case.
Thank you.
So there was another question come in from Darius, who says that he already has a grant from SASP, but the conditions are more restricted than this. So could he, Darius, could you unmute? Because it would be much easier for you to do this one. Did you want to give the money back to SASP, and or would you like an additional project?
Hello. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, the current condition or current grant that we are using are mainly for adults, and that was the expectation. And the course is pretty much ongoing. So we need to identify the people that we are granting the money towards any activity. And I was wondering if we particularly aiming at children and young people, and we've got like a one-off events which this grant will not cover, whether that will be still applicable, and especially any cost involved. So we are talking about liability insurance, DBS checks.
Right. Okay.
That this particular grant would not allow us to do. So that's the reason for asking. And there's like a clear separation there.
Okay. So the SASP money you have is the Tackling Inequality Fund money.
Yes. Yeah.
But for adults, this would be, you would need to declare it.
Yeah.
But Kirsty, correct me if I'm wrong, but because you're going to be applying to do a different project from this, you would still be eligible. Is that right, Kirsty?
Yes, that's right. And as this, what you'd be applying for is, as you say, specifically for young people, and would be totally separate from the work that you're doing with the other grant. That would be fine.
And you just need to declare it.
So yeah, the only reason, or the only change to for, I think, eligibility wise, is the fact that we are applying for young children 5 years upwards. Is that correct?
Yeah. 5 to 25 is for clubs in crisis.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you.
So have a question from John Grundy. I will email you. I will email everybody who's been on this call with the an equality statement, sort of pro forma, which then you can work with if that works for you. And I'll just take it from Club Matters as we go forward. Unless, Catherine, you've got something that you've used that's equally easy and I can give people a choice.
Probably I would say go with the Club Matters one. It's
okay.
Updating quite a lot of hours and waiting for feedback from Sport England. So yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
So Jane, just talking about the the equality and thinking about reflecting that in people's applications, it's probably good to think about how your club reaches out to get new members or to encourage young people to get involved. Whether you're kind of targeting in particular areas, or give examples of if you're particularly reaching out to a group that are less underrepresented within your club. That would be interesting and helpful to know. And the other thing we'd be interested to know, if you're sort of applying for to do a particular activity or something, it's how do you know that the young people you work with that they actually want to do that activity? Is it something they've expressed an interest in? And maybe they might have said, oh yes, we'd really like to do, I don't know, mountain biking because we want to be outside in nature more, and we think we'll benefit X, Y, and Z. So it's really helpful to be able to see that you understand your young people's needs and sort of what their interests are and what they'd like to do and how they feel about how they benefit from it would be really useful.
So we haven't got any other questions. We had one other question that came in from that just sort of said, so if we're asking for money towards a larger grant, which was for the general community, including young people, how would that play? And I think that Kirsty responded to that by saying that would be lower priority, that actually we really want things that are focused on that 5 to 25-year-old age range, and that the very general sort of outdoor equipment, which might be used by anybody, was of a lower priority. Would that be fair?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we're looking at this is funding that we want to really benefit young people, and I think the application form does ask you about how many members you've got, how many are over 25, how many are under. So I think the key thing is that even if you've got lots of members who are over that age group, whatever you're asking for us to fund, it really has to benefit them. By far the majority have to be young people.
So we don't have any other questions. So we will post the recording, and I will send around the equity and equality policy. And if everybody's happy, we will say good night and thank you very much.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jo, I was going to say just whether it's just worth just 1 minute, just sort of explaining who Sported are. Would that be all right? If you don't
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. No problem at all. No problem. I realise people are waiting for their tea or want to probably go and watch a TV, but I'll just be literally 1 minute. So if you are interested in sort of some further support, kind of moving forward, I represent a national charity called Sported, and everything that we sort of do and offer is provided for free, much like your active partnership. So you don't have to kind of pay for any membership. We support groups that work with young people, so very much linked to this funding. And the way that we help really is helping you in your sort of operational tasks, or the dull things that nobody likes to do, like look for funding, finances, marketing, impact, structure, all those things that you might struggle with behind the scenes. And we provide lots of support, advice, mentoring, webinars, workshops. We'll look over grants for you. We have project work, discounts, lots and lots of things. So if you do work with young people and you do work in this sport for development sector, you're very welcome to take a look at Sported. Perhaps Jane will just pop the link or with the information that goes out. If you'd like to become members, it's free to do, takes about half an hour just to apply. And like I say, moving forward, this is exactly the kind of thing that, you know, we also additionally kind of can help with and partner up with like the foundations and your active partnerships to help you. So have a little look. Like I say, the organisation is Sported. I'm here in the Southwest also to help you, and we'll feed back and support you one-to-one as much as I can as well. Fab.
And that's great. And Catherine's been fabulous at supporting a huge number of organisations around this funding. So has got a breadth of experience of doing that too. So anyway, thanks everybody for your time.
So we've got one person. Sorry, we've got one person with their hand up. Florence, leader. I don't know if you've meant to put your hand up. I can just see. I'm not sure whether you want to ask a question.
No, it was just a thumbs up saying thank you very much.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. I just wanted to check. Thanks, Lawrence.
And I'll try again. So we're off. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thanks very much for organising.
Good luck with the application.
Yeah, thanks Jane.
Guys. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye.